thank you so much for the time that we can spend together today. We pray that you will bless our time together. Pray that you'll give us wisdom and understanding as we try to look through some of the things that are happening in the world today that indicate that we live at a very significant time of history. Bless us today in Jesus' name, amen. Well, this is a crazy week. I keep thinking of, so I'm titling this, Watch Quickly. This update will expire in 5, 4, 3, 2.5, because things are happening. As you may have noticed this week, things are happening very quickly. I did post on my Facebook and X account yesterday that I'm longing for the good old days of 2025 already. And somebody posted and said, well, that wasn't a very good year. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. Because it wasn't a very good year, but we'd like to go back because things are happening very quickly. I'm reminded of that phrase that I think it's attributed to Lenin, not that I'm a fan of his or anything, but I supposedly said there are decades, there are weeks, there are decades when, no, there are years when decades happen, and there are weeks when decades happen or something. Now I'm getting it all messed up. So you get the point is sometimes things go very, very slowly. They don't seem to change that much. And then there are weeks where decades of things will happen. And I think that's one of the things we're seeing right now. I was mentioning to Pam this morning is that, you know, if I talk about something, I'm going to have a section in my update. So these are things that happened 3 or 4 days ago. So this is the ancient history part of my update, because it does seem like things happen really, really quickly. So I'm going to be in California in March. I'll be at Rock Harbor, maybe 412 Church. And I was thinking on the way up, I did a thing at Calvary Chapel, the Harbor, on election night in 2024, which was just a little over a year ago. Trump hasn't even been in office 350 days yet for his second term. And if you think, I guess I would just say is, if you think you've seen it all, you haven't. Just wait, because I think things are going to really ramp up from here. I know we say that all the time, but I did an update the other night with Pete Garcia. You can find that under the live tab on our YouTube channel. And by the way, we did ask, we don't usually do this, ask for donations, and I want to thank everybody who graciously and generously gave. We really do appreciate that. But one of my update title slide for the thing I did with Pete Garcia on January the 1st was it was like the front end of a looking out the front window of a car. In the rear view mirror was, you know, like flames and fire that we were looking back, and that was said 2025 on it. So you might want to watch that, if nothing for just the title slide, because I worked a long, long time on that. And so I've updated my Erdogan and hugging the cutter chess piece thing. And now he's got the Joker card in his pocket. That's Al-Jilani, that it's got the strings controlling him. Maybe I can see the little Joker card there. Very clever, isn't it? Thank you very much. So today, what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk about some of the things that are just sort of general cultural things, but then I'm going to spend a lot of time on Middle East, a little bit on Russia, China, Taiwan. Then we'll look at what I think was a very significant event that took place in Istanbul on January 1st, the third annual event. I think it's very significant. I have some comments on that I want to share with you from some commentators that I think are very significant. I think we might miss the importance of that event, of what it means to people in Turkey that are in charge. And Turkey's a very significant end-time player. I don't think it's talked about enough. And also pray for me. I'm trying to arrange some interviews with people that you'll see today that are talking, and hopefully those will take place in the near future. And I don't even know where to begin. So let's just look at a couple things. One thing we want to remember too is this verse in Daniel that says that the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. And it says earlier in Daniel that men will go to and fro. And I think that means and knowledge will increase. And I think it has kind of a double meaning, that knowledge will increase in the end times. And we see this with technology and computers. The growth is just absolutely phenomenal. And it's always interesting, too. It says knowledge will increase. It doesn't necessarily say wisdom for the general population will increase. And I think we're seeing that. And I've got a stunning video later on about that. But that the wise will understand, and we want to be wise people. And then we also talk about this. This is from Ezekiel chapter 38. Son of man, set your face toward Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, this is what the Lord God says, behold, I am against you, Gog, chief priest of Meshach and Tubal. So I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and I will bring you out in all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them magnificently dressed, a great contingent with shield and buckler, all of them wielding swords. Persia, Cush, and Put, with them, all of them with buckler and helmet, Gomer with all its troops, Beth Togarmah with the remote parts of the north, with all of its troops, many peoples with you. And I mentioned last week, I spent a little bit of time on this, that there's not agreement in the Bible prophecy community about who all's involved in this. Now, some of these are pretty easy. Clearly, we know Turkey. We also see Persia, which is Iran, but that's kind of up in the air right now. Would you agree that how's that going to work out? We'll talk about that. But I think Turkey is clearly there. Cush and Put, which are Sudan and Libya in modern terms. And then we see all the things going on with Somaliland. Who had Somaliland on their end time bingo card for the end of December of this year? I know nobody did. Somebody described that as Netanyahu is trolling the world. By the way, check the links in the show notes that I've provided. You may have to have an X account to read some of them, but there's way, way more that I will never get to. In fact, we're sort of testing the limits of the size of the show notes. And on YouTube, you can put 5,000, I think it's 5,000 characters. And some weeks I'm sending them links that are exceeding that, and that didn't used to happen, and it's happening quite a bit. So, as I said, there is a disagreement. Some people think Russia's involved in this Ezekiel 38, 39 invasion. There's a disagreement as to the timing of it. Some people think it happens before the rapture, before the 70th week. I happen to think I'm more of a mind that it happens later in that 70th week, near the time of the second coming of Jesus. And that has implications. And I know that one of the arguments people will make, well, it says in there that they burn the weapons for 7 years. Why are you going to be burning weapons in the millennium? And my answer is, so what verse do you have to give me a reference to look at to say what power sources will be used in the millennium? I mean, people will go, there will be human beings alive then. They will go up to Jerusalem. Do they have cars? Do they have electric cars? Do they have flying cars? It doesn't say, and that's the point, is that there may be power plants. There may be nuclear power plants. We know that there are prophecies in different passages in Jeremiah and others that the smoke of their burning goes up the whole time. So there's burning going somewhere during the millennium. So why wouldn't the burning of the weapons take place? So, and I understand the arguments. Believe me, I've read them all. I've thought them through, and I'm just saying I'm just asking questions. Okay, isn't that a good thing these days? Everybody's just asking questions. So let's. Okay, so this guy, some people think he will be the Antichrist, King Charles, King Chuck, the third of England, UK. I don't know. We're sort of reaching limits on some people as to ages. So take anybody's age and add 7 years to it, and are they going to be effective? So that's why, I had a lot of people, a lot of friends till the day he died. This last year, Pope Francis, he was the false prophet. There's no question he was the false prophet. And then what happened? Well, he died. So what happened when he died? His ability to be the false prophet went with him. So somebody else. So I'm just saying we sometimes get attached to one person, and some people will say it's Donald Trump, but Trump's getting up there. And I get videos, look how bad he looks and all this other stuff. And I don't know. I know he's up at 3:30 in the morning posting on social media, which is, at his age, is pretty amazing, but it's maybe not the wisest thing to do. But that's him. So he's got this big Echo film coming out, wants an Echo revolution. So he's totally tied into this. Remember, he set up a thing a number of years ago, and now I'm going to forget. There were two things that he set up, and they were sort of based on the Magna Carta theme. It was one was related to the Earth Carta, and I cannot remember the name of that. If anybody remembers that, tell me what it was. What it was? Terra Carta. Terra Carta, thank you. And, because we're going to take care of the earth. And I guess that wasn't big enough for Chuck. So he decided to make up Astra Carta, we're going to be the whole universe. And so I don't have to prove anything. He's the one who's saying it. The Economist usually takes, thank goodness, a couple weeks off at the end of the year, the people at The Economist. But before they go, they do that year-end thing, and we've talked about that, the year ahead, 2026, where they sort of predict what's going to happen. Now they do it. They also do a holiday double issue. This year it's a cruise ship, and you see all the people there. You see what looks like George and Martha Washington sipping wine because this is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. You see the Yeti guy there talking to someone, and people running around. So you can go and spend time figuring out the symbolism. You're free to send me an email. And even the Financial Times forecasting the world in 2026, they had a number of them. And sometimes they're just questions, not so much as predictions. So you can see some of them here. Will Trump tariffs on average end the year higher than now? I don't know. Trump was saying that's $18 trillion or something coming back to America. One thing we can be sure, the financial system is in a very unpredictable, volatile state. And sometimes people criticize me because I don't get up here and say the world is ending financially this week. I don't do that. You know why? Because I don't know. Okay? I really don't know. Listen, I've been thinking for years that something's going to happen. But I'm talking like we're getting close to 20 years that I've thought that. So I guess that makes it more imminent. I don't know. But I see people say things 3 years ago. Everything is going to be reset. The gold standard, the dollar is dead. The dollar is done. And it hasn't happened yet. And it may happen this year. It may happen next week. There will be a reset. I think that's coming at some point, but I don't have a crystal ball to tell me when, and very few people do. Now, you can make the case and make the arguments. That's fine. I don't mind that at all. I'm just going to point out, I've been hearing it for a long time. I think it's coming, but I just don't know when. And it will be significant when it happens. So anyway, will the AI bubble burst? I've been looking at this, and believe me, if you think people in the Bible prophecy community don't agree on things, go to the financial people on AI bubbles and all that and what they're talking about, and they don't agree either. Their disagreement is probably deeper. Will France hold snap elections? I don't know. Will China's currency appreciate? Will Saudi Arabia normalize relations with Israel? This one they answer, no. Will the gold price go above $5,000 an ounce? Yes. Will an entirely AI-generated song top the charts? No. Will Elon Musk Tesla reverse its market share declines in the US, the EU, and China? They say no. I don't know about that. I think Tesla's got some things up its sleeve on, I'm seeing some things on very cheap, affordable cars will completely disrupt the market. And one thing we can say is Elon Musk is a disruptor. And he's convinced, for example, on robotics, they've got the market cornered on robotics, and it's going to take over. And if you look at declining demographics and aging populations, we're going to need them. That's a fact. I could have used one this morning. I get up early, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning on Sundays, and I drop my glasses. And I've often said, I joke with Pam, is, dropping things and having to bend over and pick them up is God's way of giving old people exercise. So I dropped my glasses and they hit, and it was like a spring effect. So here I am in the dark on the ground, crawling around, trying. Pam wakes up. What are you doing over there? I can't sleep. Finally, they had wedged themselves in between the dresser and the wall, like standing straight up on end. And because it's hard to find because they're my glasses, I'm nearsighted. I can't see without them. So I told Pam, I got up and I said, well, thank you. And now I think I have my first Tai Chi workout in place for the year. My feet is full of this Tai Chi walking and that type of thing. So I don't know if it works. Let me know if it works. And okay, so let's see what we have. Let's hear some other. Will Keir Starmer face a leadership challenge? Yes. I don't know. We would hope. Will we have a robust, commercially viable quantum computer in operation? No. But it won't be much longer before we do, and that'll be a huge game changer in the way computers and technology goes. And by the way, a week from Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll be doing another technocracy roundtable. And I also have an interview coming up with Patrick Wood and Courtney Turner on their new book, The Final Betrayal, which talks about technocracy. So we'll be doing that, I think, on January, what's today? The 4th? January 19th.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of two.
So this is a lady at a Virginia school board talking to the school board people. And I just say it because I appreciate people like this who are very brave, very smart, and the little kid she'll pick up here in a minute has a very good mother. But she's talking to the school board in, I think it's Fairfax, Virginia, because they want to implement things. She'll talk a little bit about that, and I think it's great that she stood up and said something.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of two in Fairfax County. This is my oldest. And my husband and I have a difficult decision to make this fall as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways. This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda. And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just going to give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. And early childhood is supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle. These kinds of topics should be introduced sensitively and by parents who are raising their children with their values, not with an ideology passed down from the top.
I think that's very good. And I would say that ranks right up there with Uncle Buck's discussion with the schoolmaster, the headmistress, and Uncle Buck. And if you want to watch that, that's fine. I thought it was a classic. And if you don't like it, that's too bad because it was great. So here's, I read a lot about Canada just because it's just north of us. And it's beautiful country, great people. But they have lunatics in charge in a lot of places. It's broken. And so here's a big article on the front page of the National Post, Broken Faith. And what it talks about is the fact that they're not seeking hard sentences for criminals. It sounds like, and I'll talk more about him in a minute, Mondami in New York, we're going to let all the criminals out. We're going to give them short sentences. Why? Because they're only bad because bad white people oppressed them and made them commit crimes. That's the narrative. That's New York. New York is, I don't know how to say it, is finished. When I had a flight delay from back from Israel in November, I could have hung around New York, JFK for a couple days maybe to get a flight home, and I decided to drive. And one of the reasons I decided to drive right away was I was going to get through New York on Sunday night before rush hour, and people started waking up. And I mean, I thought it, and I was like, as you're driving through, the south end of Harlem, across the Manhattan and everything, and that was before Mondami took office this week. So we'll talk, I won't talk too much about this. Russia, Ukraine still continues to heat up. Ukraine still does, I think, some very innovative things. I've seen pictures of areas in Ukraine where there have been drone attacks. What happened was the drones, somebody figured out, hey, we can jam the signals that can control the drones. So what was the solution to that? Well, connect fiber optic wires to the drones and let them fly because the signals can then get through. Now there's like fiber optic spaghetti over thousands of acres of Ukraine. I don't know how they're going to clean it up of all the fiber optic wires that are there because people shot down drones or the drones, did they were supposed to do. It's incredible, but that's part of modern warfare. But so Russia's going after Odessa. There's a report here that Kyiv's military, Europe's biggest, faces an uncertain future. Ukraine and Russia are running out of men. It used to be Russia was resupplying men that were killed or injured in the war. Now It's not a one-to-one replacement. It's a meat grinder, and it's a meat grinder for both of them. Neither country, I don't see how either country recovers from this problem demographically. At least right now, you still need males to make children. And you're losing a lot of males in both countries. In Russia, I've heard a couple million males of military age left the country because they didn't want to serve. They didn't want to get involved in this. It's, and we're talking conservative estimates of Russian losses, and Ukraine's probably meet or exceed this, are somewhere in the order of 350,000 dead in Russia. Last 4 years. Those are young men that aren't going to have families and have children. And remember how big a deal it was during how long did the Vietnam War go on? 10, 11, 12 years? It's kind of hard to remember. I remember it was all through my childhood into my teen years because I was in the draft. Well, I had a very high draft number. In the meaning that it's like 11 or 12, which you didn't want. And then they decided to stop the draft. That was the year that I was going to get drafted. It stopped the draft. But this went on for a long time. And we all know a lot of people in America of our age, in 60s and 70s and 80s, we all know people who died in Vietnam. That was 55,000. In a country that had more people at the time than Russia does now. Now Russia's got 350,000 dead. That's a huge impact. And what does that mean? So Putin comes out. It says here, this is from the Times of the UK. Putin sees 2026 as his year if he shows no weakness. So I don't know that it's going to happen. There's also a thing there we'll talk about him. Mayor Mandami wants to reinvent New York City. And by the way, if I forget to say it when I get to that section, Mandami lied about everything that he wanted to do. Everything. So here's Putin orders his troops to move into northern Ukraine. And then there's kind of an interesting little video section here, or picture section in the Times news article about how drones are attacking Russians on horses. And, when we read Ezekiel 38, we see horses. So Russia, they started running out of tanks, so they had a lot of horses, so they started using horses and cavalry, and then they started being attacked by drones. So, Russia's saying we're going to move into northern Ukraine. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about Turkey. I think Turkey is incredibly significant, is important. I'm going to start off with a clip I've played a number of times recently of Ruth Wasserman Land, former member of Knesset. She was a diplomat in the diplomatic corps to Egypt. She worked for Shimon Peres. She's very intelligent, very astute. She's with the Mizgov Institute. I'm going to start off with her clip for, I believe it's December 8th of last year, which was the 1-year anniversary of the fall of Syria. Now, we all know around here that Syria fell because Erdogan directed that operation. He planned that operation for years. He was very patient. On December 8th, al-Shara came to power, went to the Umayyad Mosque, remember that name, Umayyad Mosque in Damascus, stood in the pulpit, just like al-Baghdadi from ISIS had stood in the pulpit in the mosque in Mosul to declare the caliphate. Al-Shara did the same thing at the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. Ruth Wasserman Land looked at that, and I think her analysis of this is spot on. This is what she said on the 1-year anniversary of the fall of Syria.
How now does Israel work to keep the Turks from the door.
So one issue that I'd like to comment on, I completely respect and agree with every word you said, but I would even go further and say that it's not that Israel is afraid that Turkey will take over or use Syria as a stepping stone towards Israel. I think that there is no longer a Syria. I think that it's a facade. I think that it's Turkey that we are facing. It's interesting that Asharia keeps saying that Israel is, in fact, in the southern part of Syrian soil, but it says no word about Turkey being in the northern part of Syrian soil, and not for a short while, but rather for a very long while. And this is something that is a huge issue. One, Turkey is a huge country, very geostrategically placed in terms of its geographic placing. Secondly, it's a NATO member. In terms of military might, it's very capable. And obviously supporting the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, having grown up on the, let's say, ideology of the founders of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, Erdogan is carrying out the absolute first stepping stones and the foundation of a future Ottoman Empire. He says it in his speeches, he speaks it in his actions. He is placing himself in Libya, in Sudan, in many places in Africa. He is the next Iran. And when Iran and the Shiite axis lowers or weakens, always the Sunni axis strengthens, and vice versa. And this is something that it will eat from within the West if it doesn't wake up soon enough.
And I think she's right. And you notice how diplomatic she is when she's addressing someone else. She says, and I agree with every word you said, but... and so I would say to her, I agree with every word you said, but I think Erdogan's plans and hopes for him or his successors will be much bigger than a revived Ottoman Empire. And I remember talking about this years ago. There were articles in Foreign Policy and Foreign Affairs about how Erdogan was inching down into Syria. That should have been a warning to everybody that he wanted to take it all over. And I think that he's now been able to accomplish that. And you remember one of the last meetings Trump had with Erdogan, Trump, as only Trump can do, there's things that he does that make me cringe, but then I'm like, yeah, that's kind of right. And so this is kind of cringeworthy with another leader of the second largest army in NATO next to the United States. He goes, yeah, that was pretty cool how you took over Syria like that. Now, I know you're going to say you didn't do it, but we all know you did. It was very cool how you did that. And he just kind of trolls him right in the Oval Office to his face, which is kind of, there's an entertainment factor to it for me. Okay, whether it's the appropriate diplomatic way to handle it, okay, that's up. But then again, you don't always need to be, sometimes you just need to tell the truth. Now, after the Syrian government fell, Erdogan was speaking in one of the cities in Turkey at a rally. And we remember that it talks about chief prince in Ezekiel chapter 38. That's the translation. And by the way, she just said, where else is he thinking about moving? Libya and Sudan, Kush and Put. Now, Russia's also messing around in those areas. I get that. So it's a kind of a race to see which one of these countries will be what we think will be here in the end times. But it's very interesting that all of this comes up just on a regular newscast on I-24. So Ruth Wasserman Land followed that up with an article in the Jerusalem Report. You can go online and get it. The Key to Western Survival, How Iran's Decline, Turkey's Rise, and the Spread of Islamist Extremism Now Threaten the West's Security. This article was, if nothing, not only was it reporting on what was going on, but it's very prescient in light of the things that we've seen happen in the world over the past 2 weeks since it was published, less than 3 weeks since this was published. And I would recommend that you get this. And so this, she said, there was a blow to Tehran. The Shia went down, the Sunnis rise up. Now, this week on one of the podcasts on JNS, you should follow their podcasts, Doron Spielman, Danny Seaman, Mira Kay, the Quad. There's a lot of really good information that come from JNS, Jerusalem News Syndicate. Highly recommend that you follow them. And now I'm going to remember, Dan Diker. Dan Diker, I believe, is the director of the Jerusalem Center for Foreign Affairs. Used to be the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. They've renamed it. jcpa.org is their website. He had on David Wurmser. Wurmser's been a security guy, used to be on Caroline Glick's show all the time. And he makes some very interesting comments about what was going on in Syria when Syria fell on December the 8th. How is that viewed in the Islamic world? And here we sit a year later watching things. And so listen to this. It's about 5 minutes long.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we've been dealing with Erdogan and his Muslim Brotherhood attitude for quite a while. For example, the Tika Foundation operating in Jerusalem and so on and so forth. But there's a more acute nature to it now since last December when Ahmed Ashara took over from Assad, because there's this civilizational question where for the first time in 1,000 years, Sunni Arabs have taken control of Damascus. And that plays into this mythological question of why, you know, anybody who studied with Bernard Lewis or the other great Middle East scholars always knows the central question in the Arab world over the last 500-600 years was what went wrong? How did we, the power that was great and was destined to rule the world, suddenly stalled and failed and now retreated? And when you see the answers that lately in this last half century, the growing answer is the Muslim Brotherhood answer or the Salafi answer. They're not the same, but they're similar in their outlook.
I mean, you're talking about Osama bin Laden essentially as an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Osama bin Laden and Sayyid Qutb and so forth, which is essentially Muslims had abandoned the purity of their faith. And they abandoned it after the first 100 or 200 years of Islam, which was, by the way, corresponding to the Umayyad Caliphate, which was in Damascus. And as a result of abandoning that purity of faith, Allah did not help them, and they stalled and they went back. By coming back to Damascus, which is the epicenter of Sunni Islam, even more than Mecca. Mecca is the spiritual center, but Damascus is the political epicenter of Sunni Islam. And Salafi and Muslim Brotherhood thought, by coming back to Damascus, it is essentially saying we have returned to the first 100 years of Islam and we are going to resume our civilizational expansion to take over the world. And that is why the minorities in Syria, all of them, which are very sensitive to this sort of discussion, are instantly saying, oh my God, this is something we haven't seen in 1,000 years. And they're rallying themselves and around each other and begging Israel to protect them, because they see this as an apocalyptic existential threat to their survival as communities if Islam has such civilizational confidence. The second thing is Europe. Islam sees Europe as going down. And so there's this real sense in Damascus and in the Sunni world surrounding the Muslim Brotherhood as we are on the offensive. We are taking over we're about to have our greatest victory, taking over Europe. We're winning. And that's the way it looks from Damascus. And then you see the strategic behavior of Turkey, which is a manifestation of this, in the Horn of Africa, in vis-a-vis Greece, threatening to reopen the end of World War I and take half the islands or more, reassert themselves across the Middle East, etc. So you see it manifest there, but you also see it in a larger sense manifest in a more aggressive behavior toward Israel. And so there's this real civilizational threat that's emerging. So over the last month, what you've seen Israel do is it's acted quite strategically and adeptly, while nobody was noticing, to block that emerging Sunni threat. And it's a large question of how does the Sunni world adapt to the world as we know it, rather than challenge it and try to overthrow it. And Israel was working in Somalia, Somaliland. Israel was working with Greece and Cyprus to form a strategic alliance. Israel's been closely working with the UAE in Yemen. And so what you're seeing is Yemen, UAE and Israel understand the nature of this threat as well, in addition to the minorities in the Levant. And they are strategically cooperating in an intense level at this point, and overtly, really. And this, of course, surprised Turkey and Qatar. Qatar is part of this inextricably, because they're really the ideological center of funding and institutionally helping the Muslim Brotherhood. Turkey is, of course, fully ideologically involved, but they're kind of, for Qatar, it's also a rent-a-thug or rent-a-sultan.
Okay, so Qatar, that's the chess piece that Erdogan's hugging. That's the ATM for Sunni Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood. This is very significant, especially when we see what's going on in New York. So he mentioned the Umayyad
In the
dynasty.
6th century, the Arabian Peninsula was the backyard of...
So this goes through and shows the development of Islam and the spread of Islam. And so Islam, started at 622. It went to Medina. It took over the Arabian Peninsula. Then it spread into modern-day Iran, northern Africa. And then about 650, the Umayyads took over. 661 AD. I don't like this CE. I hate that. But that's okay. It'll work out. So the Umayyads took over, and for 90 years, they had this massive empire. It was centered, its capital was Damascus. That's incredibly important, just as Dr. Wurmser said. Damascus was the geopolitical epicenter of Sunni Islam during that massive Umayyad caliphate. And one of the big buildings that was built, you can kind of see it there in the shadows, about 691 AD, they built the Dome of the Rock on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Again, that was a very significant, strategic building to desecrate or take over the site of the Jewish temple. So the Umayyads went and they spread from Damascus all the way up there was a battle of Tours in France. They occupied, and they eventually shrunk back, but they occupied Spain till 1492, or until the 1490s, when they were kicked out. So this was a very significant thing, that this was a huge empire, the Umayyad Empire. Here's another map of it, and you can see the extent of this. Damascus was the capital. So what Dr. Wurmser said was, now Sunni Islam has Damascus back. Into the Sunni Muslim Brotherhood mind is they've restored the capital. We've been impure all of these years. We've now got our Islamic purity back, and we're on the march to take over the globe. Not the Ottoman Empire, the globe. So remember this poster from a year ago. I know people have it memorized by now. Yesterday, Hagia Sofia. Today, Umayyad. Tomorrow, Al-Aqsa. And so this was not a poster, hey, come to a neat rally at the bridge in Istanbul. My view is this is a battle plan. And the interesting thing is, it squares up with the Bible. about things that we're talking about. And as Dr. Wurmser said, this has not been true for over 1,000 years. When Erdogan went to that rally, the people started chanting. This is in December, around December 20th of 2024. Chief, take us to Jerusalem, the crowd chanted. Chief, take us to Jerusalem. Erdogan's response, victory comes to the patient. One of his coalition partners in his government tweeted there was at a rally not too long after that, and he said, if the fall of Damascus has taken place, the fall of Jerusalem is imminent. And here is a tweet from somebody by the way, I don't know if I'm being blessed or they're trying to convert me. I am slammed with Turkish X accounts and what they say. And I'm telling you, they're treating him like the Sultan. And so it says here, throughout history, the conquest of Jerusalem has always come after Damascus. First Damascus is taken, then Jerusalem, grant it, O God. And that's what this poster said a year ago, January 1st, 2025, for that rally. So this week, 3 days ago, seems like ancient history now, another rally took place. Free Palestine was the title of the rally, led by Erdogan's son, Bilal. And it's kind of interesting that the poster a year ago said, a sun is rising. And now we go here to the headlines this week. The son of Erdogan leads this rally. And it was a pretty amazing rally. I mean, there were 520,000 people in a cold morning in Istanbul on New Year's Day. They came out to the bridge to rally in support of Palestine. And this is, I don't know, there's like, what, 2 million go to the Rose Parade maybe in Pasadena? It's a very big deal, but this is 500,000 in Istanbul for this. And you need to understand that the purity thing, it's almost like a purity ritual that they did. Here's somebody from the Moshe Dayan Center on I-24, and listen to what he says about how they view it and why they did it early in the morning on January 1st.
The crowd that you're seeing is a kind of a demonstration of power for Erdogan supporters, and I think there is something also something sociological. Let us look at the timing. They are doing it in the very early in the morning, and January the 1st. It means that we are not from the ones who got drunken, a night ago in the New Year's Eve. Instead, we are getting up very early in the morning and we are going to the mosques. And after the morning prayers, we are filling the Galata Bridge in Istanbul to protest against Israel. It's not only about Israel. This is also about the lifestyle of secular Turkey. And therefore, this is a very clear, how should I say? This is a very clear demonstration of power that it's not only Israel, but it is also very much related to Turkish politics. And I really believe that I'm highlighting this. Bilal Erdogan is using this Palestinian issue for his own purposes, because at the end, thanks to this problem, he can feel the city centers. It's very easily.
The other thing is, remember about a year ago, there was it's so hard to remember where things happen now because so much happens in between. I think it was early last year, there was a massive earthquake in Turkey. Lots of people died. It wasn't super strong. It was like 6.2, 6.5. But these cities in southern part of Turkey were built on an earthquake faults, and the buildings just collapsed. I don't have the video. They've all been rebuilt. Erdogan is walking around triumphantly through these new cities, villages, towns that have been completely rebuilt with homes. It looks like North Columbus with all the condominium and apartment complexes going up. It's unbelievable. And it was just a year ago. Was it a year ago? Maybe it was 2 years ago. I don't know. It's been very recent. It was incredibly significant. And this guy from Dr. Eten Cohen Yanarok or Yanak, I don't know, whatever his name is. I wish they would put their names up phonetically. It would help us out. But he talked about, what did he say? We went to the mosque first. Did they go to the mosque? Did they ever go to the mosque before that rally? Here is a video of morning prayers in Hagia Sofia in the mosque. It is standing room only. This is the largest church ever built in the history of Christendom. It's like bigger than Lakewood down in Houston, which is in an arena. Do you see it's standing room? They couldn't even get everybody into the mosque to pray in the morning before they went to the rally for Palestine. So they went out to the bridge. Erdogan's son led this.
İşte Batı'nın kendi sözleşmeleri.
I should turn that down. You don't want to hear him. But essentially said the world disqualified Russian athletes, even banned Dostoevsky, but embraced Netanyahu, the Hitler of the 21st century. This is the disgrace of Western civilization. Do you see what he's saying? He goes on for 7, 8, or 9 minutes. You can go find the translation of it. But he's saying, we're pure. We're reestablishing the caliphate. We have Damascus. Now we're getting ready for Jerusalem. Because it always follows when Islam is pure, they're going to get Jerusalem. Erdogan also spoke, and he said, the actions of this Pharaoh called Netanyahu will not go unpunished. We have containers that we can send to Gaza, but they do not want us to send them. Sooner or later, we will rescue those oppressed people from their distress. And boy, they're really intent on rescuing the oppressed people in Gaza. So yesterday, they sent the great warrior Angeline Jolie to Gaza, to the Rafah crossing. Somebody made the comment, I was going to say, by the way, please don't mistake me for a starving Gazan person, okay? Because I kind of look like them a little bit. She looks like she's starving. And so she goes there, I don't know, this was just a photo op. And of course, somebody made the point, when she went to Rafah, if she went 3 kilometers away, there's trucks going in like crazy to Gaza, but she went to Rafah where they're not letting trucks in. So she goes, well, look, there's no trucks here. It's all complete propaganda op. And everybody's going to fall for it. So, okay. And so this was referenced in one of the videos that I just played for you. Netanyahu trolls the world. And this is from the National Post in Canada, which obviously is kind of a conservative, pro-Jewish newspaper. And they make a point, and the point was also made by David Wurmser, that look at what Netanyahu's doing. Like, who had Somaliland on their end-time bingo card? Nobody did, and he's doing that. Then they did the Turkey-Greece, or they did the Greece-Cyprus arrangement on gas and everything, and Erdogan's really ticked off about that. So Netanyahu's trolling everybody, and he does this just as he's getting ready to come to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. It's all very carefully orchestrated, I guess is the best way to do it. So Iran is in a meltdown. They have all kinds of protests going on. Here is, and so there, I don't know exactly how far this is going to go. They're burning mosques in different cities, burning Shia mosques. Hundreds of thousands of people on the street. In some places, they're coming out at night. I saw an interview with Harold Rode, who's a treasurer on the Islamic issue. He used to live he lived in Iran at the time of the 1979 revolution. And he made a very interesting comment. So we have different ethnic groups in Iran. We have Persians, we have Azeris, which are probably the most predominant ethnic group. I believe Khomeini's wife is an Azeri. And they have different dialects and language and all this stuff. But, Iran has the water problems. Now this is happening. And Harold Rode said, listen, so we have the Azeris, we have the Persians, and then we also have the people in the bazaars, the bazaris, he called them, the merchants. And the merchants were on the Khomeini side in 1979. Now they're against Khomeini. And he said, I can't say what's going to happen. I think it's very significant. It's unlike anything that we've seen since the 1979 revolution. The Crown Prince Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, that left in 1979 when Khomeini came and died shortly thereafter. He lives in Los Angeles now. He's all over social media talking about coming back and rescuing the Iranian people. Is this going to be anything? I don't know. And the other interesting thing is, how does it play into this Ezekiel 38 passage, which talks about Persia and Turkey? And the answer is, you don't know this is the problem. You don't know what the outcome is going to be when these things start. So if you remember last year, Israel started taking out the nuclear scientists and the leadership. This was 40 coffins, which is kind of a nice biblical number. And they decimated the leadership. They took out Iranian Revolutionary Guard. They took out nuclear scientists. They took out military. And maybe this is what's led to these protests now. People are bolder because they know somebody might have their back. But then we don't know what the problem with regime change is. You don't know what's going to happen. What about all the 12ers who believe they're going to bring the Mahdi? I don't know that they're in those boxes there. And so maybe they'll take power. Maybe the RRGC will come back even stronger. So we don't know exactly how this is going to play out. It's kind of interesting to watch. But as I've tried to demonstrate graphically, Iran's had some problems. They're kind of on borrowed time. We don't know how long it's going to last. Khomeini has come out, gave a big speech yesterday, and he says, we stand firmly against the enemy and will bring it to its knees with people's support. And so he's come out and says, we're going to crack down on the agitators. Ali Larjani, which is one of the advisors to Khomeini, he tweeted this. By the way, he hadn't been tweeting much for the last few months or posting on X. I like tweeting better. Tweeted, with the stances taken by Israeli officials and Trump, the behind the scenes of the matter has become clear. We consider the positions of the protesting merchants separate from those of the destructive elements, and Trump should know that the American interference in the internal issue is equivalent to chaos across the entire region and the destruction of American interests. The American people should know that it was Trump who started the adventurism. They should look after their soldiers. So clearly a threat. I had some other, here we go. So they talked about this on I-24 News. Oh, by the way, I meant to put this in the financial stuff. An ounce of silver is now worth more than a barrel of oil. And as I think Bridgette texted me yesterday, he said, yeah, it's going to be worth a lot more than a barrel of oil pretty soon if things continue this way. And then Musk wants to build humanoid robots. So here's I-24 News talking about the Persian protests in light of the Trump Bibi meeting. Trump says, don't you dare people mess around there in Iran. We'll do something about it, which was before he did the thing in Venezuela. I think that's all connected. But here's Ruth Wasserman Land and some others on I-24.
That the Islamic Republic is rebuilding its ballistic missile program. On current trends, some analysts say it will be able to produce some 3,000 ballistic missiles. We saw that the damage those missiles did during the 12-day war back in June. What message will the Prime Minister be taking to President Trump?
So let's just explain the fact that the Islamic Republic of Iran may send a big number of ballistic missiles to Israel. That's almost equal to nuclear capability in terms of its ability to destroy. And that is, I wouldn't say an existential threat, but it is a significant threat. And that's something that is obviously on the table, just for people who are not in the realm of understanding this kind of weaponry to understand and comprehend what we are up against. This is not just a threat against Israel. This is a very clear threat against Europe, and a very clear threat against the US and the transport of goods. And this is a very important thing that I believe will be discussed between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump in terms of the geostrategy. This is not something small. Israel is not the actual issue, even though media-wise and PR-wise it is put up front as if this is the whole issue. No. This is an issue, a worldwide issue, and I have no doubt that President Trump clearly understands and gets it. It's not about America and or Israel and whether America helps Israel. It's about the interests of America, full stop. And that's where the vast majority of the public, especially American public, is not informed because we don't do a good job of explaining the interests at stake. And that's, I'm talking about energy transportation, I'm talking about assets, I'm talking about naval transportation, which Iran threatens. Iran is a huge threat to the US and to American citizens. And that's where the cooperation needs to be aligned.
Trump, of course, will be cognizant, though, that the right wing of his party is pushing very hard that Iran is Israel's problem and Israel's problem alone. So politically, it is difficult for him.
But that's a populist, incorrect message that is for people who do not understand.
Well, he needs to sell that to the public and the MAGA supporters, after all.
We are very much not helpful in the narrative issue.
Do you have 50 minutes?
Sure, yeah.
30 seconds, excuse me. Just wanted to say that Israel has tolerated Hezbollah being on its border, tolerated Hamas being in Gaza. And when it comes to Iran as well, in the past, in the last war, we've seen the middle way, choosing the middle way. I'm quoting Machiavelli here. Israel did not go all in and wanted to bring down the regime. And if Israel wants to go one more time and attack Iran, the ultimate goal shouldn't be just dismantling the nuclear facilities or the ballistic facility or, attacking them and degrading their capabilities. It should be bringing down the regime. Otherwise, they'll just come back in some way, shape, or form.
And of course,
that's something that Israel needs America on its side, and also needs to be ready to pay the prices for that. Otherwise, we'll just have another 12 days war.
There are two words that Americans really dislike, and those two words are regime change. So that is going to be a very tough sell, isn't it, for President Trump, if he indeed agrees to take that path, and for Prime Minister Netanyahu this afternoon as well.
But the situation is so bad in the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is a wounded animal with its back against the wall. Throwing thousands of ballistic missiles onto the Middle East is a death wish. And that's something it doesn't even have to be narrated or messaged in the regime change. It's just going to cause a byproduct of it will be a regime change.
So Trump warned Tehran, don't shoot the demonstrators. We're locked and loaded, ready to go. And then, interesting, this is Xi in his New Year's address in China. He made a bid for global leadership. So you have all these people like Putin, Trump, and Xi. Everybody's going to be in charge of everything, I guess. And that seems to be a recipe for leading to conflict. And some people think This is an article from the Wall Street Journal. China's doing all these military exercises around Taiwan. And believe me, I read a lot of different experts. They're all over the lot. Could be that they attack this year. Others, Timmerman, who's on the Jimmy DeYoung program, Prophecy News Watch or whatever. I was listening to him this morning, and he said he doesn't think that China will move this year, that Trump will work something out because he's a man of peace. I don't know. It's one of these things where everybody's, opinions are like noses. Everybody has at least one of them. And so that's something to watch. Now I want to talk about, that's about Somaliland and Horn of Africa. A brilliant move by Netanyahu, I think. It's just sort of upended everybody and got everybody. And you can kind of tell who doesn't like Israel because, like Ilhan Omar, she's really upset about the Somaliland thing. But until you learn that her father was a general in the Somalian army and actually was one of the main guys causing an actual genocide in Somalia, which I don't think she ever protested. Kind of interesting. And it was an actual genocide. So now we got this guy in New York. Talk about that in a moment. Here's what he said during his inauguration address.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. If our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it. Because no matter what you eat, how you pray, or where you come from, the words that most define us are the two we all share: New Yorkers.
Baloney. He set up a thing so you can challenge your rent more easily or with your landlord. He's sponsored by the Democratic Socialists of America. He's funded by them. And by the way, when Trump took out Maduro, what happened in New York? Immediately, there were thousands of people on the street carrying pre-printed signs protesting in support of Maduro. They're all funded by, we know who's funding this. And they're still trying to take down Trump and everything. But Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, she has the solution to honor Muslim Heritage Month. These buildings were lit green over the last couple of days. The building that replaced the World Trade Center was lit green. It should have been lit with the American flag. This is an insult to everyone that died on 9/11. I think this is the governor's mansion in New York. This is City Hall in the middle. This is the Mario Como Bridge in New York the other night. And this, that's the Royal Clock Tower in Mecca. That's always lit green. I'm telling you, there's an agenda here that we do not understand. So somebody from ISGAP, it's a anti-Semitism organization. She came and she spoke about, this was on I-24 the other day, what does this Mondami thing mean? And I think should go get the whole interview with her, but here's what she said. And her name is Michael Kotler-Wunsch.
The danger is actually what you could hear from Mayor Mamdani's own statement, meaning criticism of the state of Israel is not only legitimate, but the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism makes clear that it is legitimate. What he not only dabbles in, but has appointed a staff surrounding him that believe in, is the demonization, delegitimization, and application of double standards to the state of Israel. That is the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition. Outgoing Mayor Adams actually finally adopted the IRA working definition of anti-Semitism and actually rolled out a strategy for combating anti-Semitism. A large part of it actually just includes implementing existing policies, existing regulations, existing laws that were not only overlooked, but completely collapsed over the past 2 years, including in New York City. And what we need to be concerned about is that this happens as the normalization of anti-Semitism, where it becomes legitimate to actually beat up two Chabadniks on the subway in New York City, because as anti-Semitism is normalized and the genie is let out of the bottle in its modern strain of anti-Zionism that denies Israel's very right to exist, and the majority of Jews self-identify as Zionists, and many non-Jews are Zionists because what they believe in is the right of the state of Israel to exist as the homeland, ancestral homeland of an indigenous people. Well, that is what we have to look actually very carefully at in New York City. And I'll just say one more thing. It is not just an issue for Jews. Anti-Semitism is never the problem of Jews. It is the problem of anti-Semites, of which this current mayor is, and of all of the places and spaces that allow them to spread this ever-mutating hate that is the most reliable sign of a major threat to humanity and freedom and the dignity of difference of all, so that all who love New York, if you will, should be very concerned and have a watchful eye at what it is that this mayor does to ensure that Jews and Zionists alike are safe in New York City, just as everybody else.
So you saw Mondami hugging Letitia James. She's the one who brought that ridiculously stupid, illegal case against Trump. In Washington, D.C., people are attacking ICE agents and doing other things. The Trump administration is taking those to the grand jury to get indictments. They are failing. That is because Soros-funded organizations are holding seminars for people who will serve on grand jury panels. How do you vote so you don't allow people to be indicted? This guy is going to do the same thing in New York. To say that I find this disturbing is a vast understatement about what's going on. We have a massive problem in the United States, in the UK, in Europe. You just heard Middle East experts, Islamic experts, one after the other say, it's not just Israel, folks. Stop that nonsense. It's the West. It's Christianity. It's Jews. It's Christians. That's what they're after. And you better wake up. I could talk for hours about the things that are going on. Go follow Amy Meck at RAIR, R-A-I-R Foundation. Robert Spencer, who Mark Sutherland and I interviewed a couple weeks ago. This is a massive problem. Now, I don't know what caused this. You remember Notre Dame burned a few years ago. It's been rebuilt, reopened. This is one of the most historic churches in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. Historic Vondelkerk Church in the Dutch capital early Thursday. They don't know who caused it, so I'm going to give them a credit. But you need to understand, this revolves around Israel and Christians. This is the prayer at the Prophet's Mosque in Medina this week. Oh Allah, grant victory to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. This is Saudi Arabia, against the insolent aggressors and tyrannical occupiers. Oh Allah, cleanse Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, that's the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, from the filth of the usurping Jews. Protect our people in Palestine, mend their broken hearts and heal their wounds. Hasten their victories, raise them from where they have fallen, relieve their distress, free their prisoners, and grant healing to their sick. That's Saudi Arabia. Everybody's talking about normalizing. We got a big problem in Saudi Arabia yet, so don't fall for it. By the way, this was just released recently. This is, you see the Kaaba there in the middle of that circle at the bottom. You see the Royal Clock Tower, the one I showed you that was green. This is called King Salman Gate. These are condominiums, apartments, buildings being built around the Grand Mosque in Mecca. This is the plan to build this over the next 5 years. That's Saudi Arabia. And they have the money to do it. I mean, this is all of this stuff has a real end times visual ring to it to me. And despite all of this that's going on, I'm going to say this. I've read the Wall Street Journal for decades. This article, front page, the review section, section C on Saturday. This was in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. This is shocking. Why jihadism is in retreat. They write from the city where a Muslim leftist, just the epitome, the physical manifestation of the Red-Green Alliance, just became mayor, and they had the audacity to publish this in their newspaper yesterday. It's shocking. So Jesus warned in Matthew chapter 24, be careful that no one deceives you. He warned about that 4 times in Matthew 24 because deception would run rampant. So maybe we need to have a deception hour about all the deception that's going on in the world. It's crazy. So this guy, Paul Sperry, tweeted this yesterday. A longtime GOP congressional leader told me the leadership is increasingly concerned about an Islamic fifth column on the Hill, Capitol Hill. The Muslim Brotherhood is executing a long-term plan to take control of Congress. We sleep, they plan and execute. New York City is a good example. So Charles Asher Small, I have a very long clip. I don't have time to play it today. There's a link to it in the show notes. And I have an 8-minute clip, but there's also a 57-minute interview he did on the podcast called Heretics in the UK with Andrew Gold. I'm going to play about a 3-minute clip of that. I want you to listen to what he says. This man, he's with ISGAP, ISGAP, I forget what it is. It's about anti-Semitism. And he talks about the Muslim Brotherhood executing a 100-year-old plan. Listen to this. Whoops.
Plan, and we're 50 years in.
Hang on a second here. Okay, here we go.
From what I can gather, it's kind of a 100-year plan, and we're 50 years in.
Correct.
And how are they doing? What are some of the points they've hit?
Well, think about it. If we take a step back, Qatar is a country. It's a tiny country in the Middle East. It has less than 350,000 citizens.
Oh.
Tiny country. Yeah. Qatar is giving more money to British education, to Canadian education, higher education, to American universities than any country in the world. So why would this tiny, wealthy country give so much money to Western democratic universities? And it's to use soft power to influence it. And the Qataris have a bay'ah. In Islam, a bay'ah is a spiritual oath to the Muslim Brotherhood. The royal family of Qatar follows all the religious edicts, rulings, and fatwas of the Muslim Brotherhood. They basically represent the Brotherhood around the world. And we estimate that the Qataris are using up to $1 trillion in assets to use as soft power to buy favor in universities, in our media, in our political leaders, to further their goals and their agenda. So Qatar is at the forefront of basically representing the interests of the Brotherhood, which is basically to destroy democratic countries. So they're giving all this aid. Naively, many people think they're benevolent and they're doing wonderful work and funding our universities. But essentially, they're changing the discourse in the West. So if we take a step back, Hamas, which is the Palestinian chapter of the Muslim Brotherhood, intent on destroying Israel and Western democratic countries. Hamas, which is anti-Semitic, but let's put that aside for a moment. They're anti-democratic, they're sexist, they want to subjugate women, murder gay people, and do away with religious minority rights around the world. Hamas murdered American citizens and British citizens on October the 7th. They kidnapped them. And amazingly, some of the best universities, the Ivy Leagues in the United States, Oxbridge in the United Kingdom, the University of London, are turning out some of the brightest, best educated young people, young citizens of democracies, and they're supporting Hamas. They're supporting anti-democratic, vulgar terrorists who adhere to a culture of death, who want to destroy democracy, who want to destroy Britain and France and Italy and Germany and Canada and Australia and the United States. And young people are being inculcated in this sort of red-green alliance of the radical left, which has dominated many of our best universities. And because the radical left wants to get rid of Western hegemony, the Islamists who want to destroy Western hegemony have this bizarre common cause. We call it the Red-Green Alliance. So our intellectuals, influenced by Muslim Brotherhood money, are teaching now the second generation of Western citizens to destroy their own country, their own culture. And it's terrifying.
And sometimes they put up a poster that has their battle plan on it with respect to Jerusalem and Israel. So a couple quick comments. So I don't know if anybody had this on their bingo card. It's a problem. By the way, Ruth Land at Jerusalem Post, Jerusalem Report has an open letter to Trump: protect the free world from those who seek to dominate it. Now, look, I don't know all of her politics. I know in this issue, she gets it. She understands what's going on. So it's about a 4-page letter. You can get it at the Jerusalem Post. And so here's another clip from, I'll play part of it, probably go over a little bit. Big surprise, right? I did make a resolution about getting out at 12:30, so not violating anything.
How much success, Dalia, did Qatar have with this campaign via the aids to the Prime Minister? And what was their ultimate aim? Was it to jeopardize the very important peace treaty between Israel and Egypt?
Thank you, Laura. Always a pleasure to be with you. Actually, what we're seeing is just another game by Qatar, revealed a game within the larger context, the bigger picture of Qatar's main agenda of destroying any peace potential or any existence.
I'll talk more about that next week. There's also, Ruth was on this program, and she talked about the fact that the next attack will not be from a single factor. Even the 50,000 new Hamas fighters will not operate alone next time, but will aspire, already preparing to act in collaboration with additional fronts. So this is not over. Now, in Columbus and in Minnesota, we have this welfare fraud scandal. It's huge. It's humongous. People on the right have lost their minds. They're so anti-Israel, so anti-Jewish. So there's a young guy. I'm going to play this clip just because I listened to it. It made me sick, so you have to. He was on War Room the other day. His name is Curtis Mills. I would call him imbecilic, but I'm afraid of insulting imbeciles. American Conservatives, Pat Buchanan's magazine. He's taken it over. So we have the Somali fraud. That's all on them if that's taking place. But Kurt is so smart that he knows who really has caused this fraud by Somalis to come to the forefront. Now, who do you think he says caused it? Well, listen to this. This was with Natalie Winters on War Room just the other day.
Somali things related, right? I mean, look, not to minimize it, but Israel is actually involved in the Somali thing. I mean, Israel has taken a side in the Somali civil war. They recognize Somaliland. And again, not to excuse that any of the fraud that is doubtless going on in some of these inner cities, but the reason why Somalia is so in the mainstream of sort of American media right now is that I think, frankly, the Israeli lobby wants to push it, and it wants to radicalize people on this issue to distract from the larger macro issue of the Israel lobby in the United States driving foreign policy on this discrete issue. And when I say discrete, it's this specific issue, Iran. But I think if they get what they want on Iran, they're gonna widen it. They're gonna widen it to Turkey. They might even widen it to Saudi, the way that you hear people talking about the region these days. And it will never really stop. And I think the idea that this is separate from the process that went on in the global war on terror, the process that Donald Trump won the presidency, rejecting in 2016 and again in 2024. The idea that this is separate, I think, is pretty laughable. Benjamin Netanyahu's had a long career. He's been the most important Israeli politician since the death of the founding generation in Israel, and his greater project has been remaking the Middle East with American force of arms.
So it's a Mossad operation. They planned all the Somalian fraud, so it would hit the newspapers right now. That man is moronic. And I don't think it's unchristian to tell the truth about that. He has lost his mind. Let's start a GoFundMe and buy him a place on the beach in Somalia and let him go live there. He doesn't think it's a problem. All of this they're going to bring Saudi Arabia in. Folks, look at what's going on. And the woke right in America, I don't know why Natalie Winters sat there and listened to it. And she doesn't have to push back, but didn't hear any commentary afterward like, well, that was an interview with an idiot. It's unbelievable. Daniel Greenfield, the great guy who had one of the great, I think he still has a blog called Sultan Kanish. Love that. It was just one of the great blog titles. After calling for a Palestinian state, Kurt Mills is now defending Somali fraud. American conservative is hiring Soros people. At this point, it's just leftists and drag. That is 100, that's his handle, at Sultan Kanish. Follow him. He's a superb writer and analyst. So I have two things to talk about. First is this thing in Switzerland. You're going to say, what does this have to do with end times Bible prophecy? Fire took place in this club in Crans-Montana in Switzerland. And the last I heard, there's 48 dead. There's dozens of others burned very badly that are likely to not live. This is from Blick newspaper in Switzerland. There's some pictures of the people who died and some pictures of the things. Now I'm going to play you a video. It's not graphic or anything, but I want you to see what happened. So this is a video. The fire has started. They had some champagne sparklers and the ceiling caught on fire. And it was crowded. But watch the reaction of the people in this video. That's fire. Did you see what happened there? They thought it was part of the show. They're taking pictures. We've completely desensitized a generation to real danger. So here's a tip, free from me and Fellowship Bible Chapel this week. If you're in a room where the ceiling catches on fire, leave. Don't put down your phone. You can get another one later. Leave, get out. And 4 dozen young people died. And they're there, they think it's part of the show. So when you read through the prophetic scripture, what do you see? There's Jesus warned against deception. There's warnings here. There's warnings here. In Matthew 24, it says, when you see this, flee. Are people going to flee? Some will. Some did. They're alive today to talk about it. but a lot won't. This is a great picture of what I think is going to happen in the end times, where people are not going to listen to the warnings. So what's our obligation? Warn them, do your watchman thing, and then it's all on them. So this stuff is coming, folks, and you're now warned, and you need to decide what you're going to do. So this was a big thing, this Maduro raid. It was, so you're going to see a lot of people questioning whether it's constitutional or not. I'm going to tell you right now, it's a very gray area. I lean to the place where, yes, this is within the president's Article 2 powers. And it's a complicated argument. Well, it's not that complicated. And so everybody's going to get upset. Oh, we shouldn't have done this. We're just getting involved. So in November, I was at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Israel. Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell, you can find it on the government press office website, her talk. And I can't believe remember if it was in the talk that she gave or a conversation with her after. She said, I see intel all the time about the drug trade in South America and Venezuela funding a third of Hezbollah's revenue. It's all connected. So somebody sort of said this maybe was the conversation that would go on between Trump and Bibi after all this happened. Bibi would say, we need help. We've got this problem with Iran. They're getting funding from over here. Trump's response, Bibi, hold my beer. I've got something to do. Now, I don't think that took place, but I'm just telling you. So we can disagree with it, whether it's good. This is all over the news. New York Post, the guy was perp walked this morning. It's kind of a big deal. So Ron Ben Yishai at Ynet has a good article. There is a link to it in the show notes. I would highly recommend that you go and read it. If you have to open it in Chrome, it's in Hebrew, but you can easily get a translation of anything these days. Venezuela was easy prey. Trump's strike reverberates in China, Russia, Iran, and even Israel. So there's a much, much bigger... So everybody's going to want to argue about presidential powers. There's a much, much bigger issue at play here that we need to consider. And we live at this, it's kind of a strange paradox that we live in. We know what the Bible says things are going to happen, but it doesn't give us a time stamp. And so we have an obligation to occupy till he comes. So how do we do this? So you should do the right thing until he comes, right? Even though it may not work, but you don't know that it's not going to work. So pray for the people in Iran, Israel, and New York. I'm following her now. She's Councilwoman Vicky Palladino from New York City. And she's tweeting like crazy. And so you need to pray for her safety in New York. This is what she said yesterday. No fascist government is complete without a propaganda office, and who better to run it than a DSA, that's Democratic Socialists of America, field organizer with a film school degree, that's Mandami. I think running a nakedly political bureau under the auspices of an official government department is probably very illegal, but these people only really care about power. The mayor's office already has a communications office and press secretary. There's absolutely no reason for this other than to push out DSA messaging using the taxpayer resources and authority of the mayor's office, and it will be supported by the chief counsel. The new chief counsel of the city of New York is the guy who was the primary defender of the al-Qaeda terrorists who were charged with causing 9/11. How do you think he's going to come down on this? He was just appointed chief counsel of the city of New York. By the way, Rudy Giuliani, he is melting down over this, and with good reason. This is a big problem. So let's pray, and we'll get out of here. in reasonable time. Define reasonable. Well, this is reasonable. Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you so much for the warnings that you gave us. And Lord, we would just pray that you will help us to have the courage to share those warnings with those around us and to act on them and to act and occupy till you come. Give us opportunities to share the gospel. Bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen.